Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic News podcast. I know the lighting looks a lot better, so you guys might be a little surprised, but I have a new light now, so hopefully the video looks a lot better. Today's video is going to be about my reaction to Imran Khan's comment about the Uyghur Genocide. There is certain things that I want to make very, very clear, which is that this is not in any way, shape or form some kind of a slander or any kind of criticism against him as a political leader or him as a president or anything like that. This is simply my opinion and what I think of the situation. Take a look at what Imran Khan says and then I give my comment.
Last year, you wrote an open letter to leaders of Muslim states asking them to unite against Islamophobia, particularly in the West. Why did you feel the need to write that public letter?
The problem is there's this big communication gap between the Islamic world and the Western societies. It happened after 9/11, when the word Islamic terrorism came into currency. The moment you say Islamic terrorism, the man in the street in the West thinks that there's something in Islam which leads to terrorism, or Islam causes radicalism. After 9/11, any time some terrorist act went on where a Muslim was involved, the entire 1.3 billion Muslims started becoming targets.
Just across your border in Western China, the Chinese government has imprisoned more than 1 million Uyghur Muslims in re-education camps. The Chinese government has tortured Muslims, forcibly sterilized them, and they've destroyed mosques in Xinjiang and also punished Muslims for fasting, praying, even giving Muslim names to their children. Prime Minister, why are you so outspoken about Islamophobia in Europe and the United States, but totally silent about the genocide of Muslims in Western China?
Whatever issues we have with the Chinese, we speak to them behind closed doors. China has been one of the greatest friends to us in our most difficult times. When we were really struggling, our economy was struggling, China came to our rescue. So we respect the way they are, and whatever issues we have, we speak behind closed doors.
We respect the way they are. We respect the way they are. That's what he said. So Imran Khan's response to the question why he doesn't speak against the Uyghur issue is that we respect the Chinese government the way they are. And which way is the Chinese government, by the way? So are you saying that you respect the fact that they're committing a genocide against Muslims? Is that something respectable? I'm sorry. Let me compose myself. As you guys can probably guess, I'm getting a little angry. So, what are the issues with this? When I first saw this interview, I was extremely disappointed because Imran Khan is someone who, even I myself, I respect him a great deal. He talks about Islamophobia, as the interviewer pointed out, and he talks about the Kashmir issue, which is something I'm also passionate about. As you guys know, I made a bunch of videos against Bhaks when they talk about Kashmiris like they're some kind of animals. I criticize them, and that is obviously that is commendable, and I respect him for that. But unfortunately, I cannot respect him on this regard. What he said is absolutely immoral, and I'm sorry, but I have to call him out on this. So, and the interviewer here is absolutely right, because Imran Khan is very active against the Western government, which is a good thing, and he should, because Western government in the Middle East have done a lot of awful things. But he has to be consistent. He cannot just criticize the Western government for all the evil things they do in the Muslim world and then be completely silent when Chinese government does things that are way worse than that and just give them a free pass. It's not okay. It's not right. Like, this is not consistent. And if you're only going to criticize the Western government for when they do something bad, and you're not gonna criticize the Chinese government, then you criticizing the Western government has no point. I mean, our relationship with our Muslim brothers, it doesn't matter where they are. It cannot be based on money. It cannot be based on simply where they live. Okay, this is not how a community is formed. You know, Prophet Muhammad said it very clearly. You know, if the ummah is like a body, right? If one part of the body is hurt, then we're all hurt. So you cannot say that if the Chinese government, because they've helped us in the past, therefore we cannot criticize them when they commit a genocide or do something bad against Muslims in their region, which is not even their region, but whatever. That is not the Sunnah. That is not the way of the Prophet. And this is completely hypocritical. I know that Pakistan have gone through a lot of economic issues and China has been there to help them. But just because China has been there to help them does not mean China is their friend. Okay? China doesn't just help people. They always have an agenda. Okay? Even if you see things like there's this thing called Chinese honey trap. And I feel like there's a guy on YouTube who made a really good video on it, where basically China uses their money to gain influence and power. Now, don't get me wrong, both China and the US are both empires, okay? And the way they colonize is, for the US, they colonize through sheer force. They bomb the place, okay? They bomb the place and then they set up a puppet government. For China, is different. The way China does it is they put you in so much debt that you cannot repay it back. Okay, this is how they operate. This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing to a lot of Muslim countries in Africa. And they've put a lot of countries in complete debt. So when you're dealing with China, you have to be very, very careful.
By the way, just to check my own bias, I'm not saying the Chinese government always does this on purpose. Sometimes they may genuinely want to help poor nations. However, due to lack of insight and corruption, sometimes these good intentions end up hurting more than helping. Pakistan has a huge debt towards China. Many experts suggest Pakistan may not be able to pay it back due to lack of revenues. China, being an economic superpower, should have thought of this and invested in Pakistan smartly with a proper plan. Instead, they put Pakistan in so much debt that it doubled the problem for Pakistan.
China is not your friend. And I'm really surprised that Imran Khan does not see this. And as Muslims, we have to be very, very careful about this, because we're no longer an empire. We're a fractured empire. We don't have a caliphate that can protect itself from outside influence. And Imran Khan, as a respected leader in the Muslim world, he should have known this. But unfortunately, what he said is extremely ignorant and it's extremely immoral. And it's not Islamic. But regardless, let's see what else he says.
What our conversations have been with the Chinese, this is not the case, according to them.
The evidence is just overwhelming.
Yeah, what the reporter said is true. The evidence is overwhelming. There is so many evidence, I don't know where to start. Okay, there are thousands and thousands of witness testimony. There are leaked Chinese government documents that are written in Chinese, that are sometimes confirmed by the Chinese government themselves, that says that the Uyghurs are being put into concentration camps. They're being watched. Their families are being taken apart. There are also Chinese officials themselves who had admitted that yes, there is a genocide happening in the jail cells or the concentration camp cells. One Chinese, in my previous video, if you see my China playlist, you will see that one Chinese spokesperson, police, he said that he has himself seen at least 100 people die during torture when the Uyghurs are put into concentration camp. He himself have seen Uyghurs dying due to torture. So this is undeniable. Okay, so you can't just deny it. There's too much evidence. Okay, so there goes the first part. Now the second part. He says that Chinese government says that nothing is happening. Really? Nothing's happening? Here he's committing the appealing to false authority fallacy. You cannot take the person that is accused of a crime as an authority to decide whether they have committed the crime or not. It's circular reasoning, right? It's like going to a murder suspect and asking him, hey, did you murder this guy? And the murder suspect is saying, no, I didn't murder this guy. You can take the murderer as an authority to decide whether he's the murderer or not. And what makes you think that his information will be reliable? So you have to go somewhere outside of him to prove whether he's actually committed the murder or not. Same thing with China. You cannot just take the word of Chinese government. They are not the authority to decide whether they themselves are criminals when it comes to committing genocide against the Uyghurs or not. You have to go to someone else for that. Now, some may say, well, it cannot be the Western government. Fine, fair enough. Don't go to the Western government. Go to the Uyghurs themselves. Okay, ask them for evidence. It's completely fallacious and illogical to go to the Chinese government and expect that they will tell you the truth. And I highly recommend you guys to check out the Uyghur Tribunal. They bring so many evidences, it's gonna blow your mind. So regardless, let's see what else he says and then we'll continue.
How come this is such a big issue in the Western world? Why are the people of Kashmir ignored? It is much more relevant compared to what might be going in the Uyghurs. 100,000 Kashmiris have been killed. There are 800,000 Indian troops which have literally, it's an open prison in Kashmir. 9 million Kashmiris are put there. Why is that not an issue? So I think it's hypocrisy.
Now, Imran Khan is not entirely wrong on this. The Kashmir issue has been ignored by the Western government, or is being ignored by the Western government in many cases. And he's right to point that out. However, what he did here is a logical fallacy known as the two-co fallacy. Just because the Western government or the Western media is ignoring the Kashmir issue does not mean you can do the same thing when it comes to the Uyghurs. Okay, just because they're doing something wrong does not mean that it's now justified for you to do. Okay, you're supposed to be better than the Western government, right? Which is why you have to speak out for the Uyghurs. So yeah, regardless, let's see what else he says.
They've been a huge partner to you, China, but on some level, doesn't it make you feel sick to have to be quiet because of all this money they're putting into Pakistan?
I look around the world, what's happening in Palestine, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Afghanistan. Am I going to start talking about everything?
Okay, then he says that, am I going to start talking about everything? Yes. Even if you can't talk about everything, at least you should keep them in mind. And as a leader, you should talk about everything, or at least try to. I mean, no one is expecting that you talk about everything, but the thing is, China is right at your border. It's not like some faraway land that this is happening to. And so, this is very odd that you would speak out against the Western government, but you won't speak against the Chinese government. So yeah, this is definitely not justified that to say that am I going to speak out against everything? You should try. No, I mean, no one is saying that you should, but since China is right at your border and you have friendly relation with China, then yes, you should speak out against it. Because a good friend is not someone who simply praises his friend when he's doing something bad. A good friend is someone who advises his friend to not do bad things when they do something bad things. Okay, so yeah, there's that. Regardless, let's see what else he says.
I concentrate on what is happening on my border, in my country.
This is on your border.
Which is part of, no, that is part of Pakistan. 100,000 Kashmiris are dying. That concerns me more because half of Kashmir is in Pakistan.
Okay, so I'm gonna read you guys some hadith, and see what Islam teaches us regarding how we should care about Muslims. I mean, does the Prophet ﷺ say that we should only care about Muslims when they are in our border or when they are part of our country, or should we care about Muslims regardless of where they live? Let's take a look and see what some of the hadith says. Okay, so this is a hadith from Sahih Muslim. It says, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri reported, the Messenger of Allah said, "Whoever among you see evil, let him change it with his hand. If he is unable to do so, then with his tongue. If he is unable to do so, then with his heart. And that is the weakest level of faith." And you can read about this in Sahih Muslim 49. In Islam, the principle here is that if you see something wrong, you have to speak out against it. So as Muslims, we have to speak out against what's happening to the Uyghurs. Then in another hadith, it says, "Whoever relieves the hardship of a believer in this world, Allah will relieve his hardship on the day of resurrection. Whoever helps ease one in difficulty, Allah will make it easy for him in this world and in the hereafter." You can read about this in Sahih Muslim 2699. As you can see, the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever can make the lives of Muslims easy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make their lives easy on the day of judgment. So we have to help them, because if we help them, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us, right? And this is the last hadith I'm going to read. The Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, said, "A caliph is never appointed but that he has advisors. One advisor orders him to do good and encourages him. Another advisor orders him to do evil and encourages him. The unscathed are only those whom Allah has protected, and he, the ruler, belongs to the group that has the greater influence over him." Prophet ﷺ here is saying that the ruler will have two groups of advisors. One will tell him to do good things, the other will tell him to do bad things. Whichever group the leader chooses, he is part of that group, which means that if a leader like Imran Khan chooses amongst his advisors those people who are advising him to do bad things, then he will be part of that group. And I don't think Imran Khan wants to be part of Chinese Communist Party who are committing genocide, because then he is guilty of the same things that the Chinese Communist Party is doing against the Uyghurs. So this is something that we have to take very, very seriously. And I hope that if Imran Khan, if you're watching this video, probably not, but please take the plight of the Uyghurs seriously. I highly recommend that you watch the Uyghur Tribunal and then with an open mind and talk to Uyghurs themselves. Don't talk to the Chinese government, don't talk to the Western government, just talk to the Uyghurs themselves. See what they say, okay? Talk to the Uyghur victims. Please, Mr. President, talk to them. That's my advice. And also another thing is that everyone knows that most Muslims' heart bleeds for all the Muslims in the world, even if they don't say anything about them. And my heart bleeds for my brothers and sisters in Kashmir, the same way it bleeds for my brothers and sisters in Palestine. But we have to be consistent. If we are hurt for the Palestinians, if we are hurt for the Kashmiris, then we have to be hurt when our Uyghur brothers and sisters are hurt. This is what being a Muslim means. It's a community, it's a family. We have to take care of one another. And that's my advice to Imran Khan. And I hope this video was beneficial. These are some of my thoughts that I had. But yeah, my camera is running out of charge. With this, I'm ending the video. Thank you guys for watching. Again, like, share, subscribe, and if you like my content, then please support me on Patreon. With this, I'm in the video. Thank you guys for watching. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.